Good morning. How's everyone this morning? Woo! Well, I am so happy you're here. My name is Julie Samuel Lambert, and I will be your MC today. I'm pleased to welcome those of us that are here in person, those that are watching on Facebook Live, and maybe someone in the future that might watch this on YouTube. We're so happy that you have chosen to spend your time with us this morning. We feel like the human experience is better when it's shared, and we're grateful that you have chosen to share it with us this morning. Kansas City Oasis is a secular humanist organization that welcomes all, regardless of beliefs or non-beliefs, race, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other trait. You see here behind me our core values, which include people are more important than beliefs, reality is known through reason, human hands solve human problems, meaning comes from making a difference, and be accepting and be accepted. We have a really great program this morning. I'm very excited to get to host, and we're gonna kick it off with our musical guest, Jack Summers. We will also have a featured speaker, Nate Hofer, on missile silo music and a nuclear weapons-free future, and a community moment from Ramalina Steiner. So without any further ado, however, let's give a warm Oasis welcome to Jack Summers.
Hello. My name is Jack Summers. This is a song called The Middle of Everything. It's about being happy where you are. It goes like this. I was once a Union soldier, marching into war, with my rifle on my shoulder. I dreamed of Illinois. My cavalry was called in to fight at Gettysburg. As we marched into the devil's den, I said my final words. My only regret is that I didn't get to buy her a wedding ring. But I'll go down standing in the middle of everything. Well, I came back as an outlaw, robbing dime stores, banks, and trains. I made my way to Arkansas from the Oklahoma plains. The sheriff and his posse put a bounty on my head. 200 if you caught me, 150 if I was dead. A clerk shot me down in a nowhere town outside of Eureka Springs. Found guilty of standing in the middle of everything. Well, one day I came back again in the bottom of the 8th. The manager called to the pen so I could get the safe. I stood there on the rubber and stared down to Maggio. I let go of my cutter as hard as I could throw. But the Yanks cleared the bench when the pennant was clenched on the back of old Joe's swing. And I was there standing in the middle of everything. Well, I was playing for the tip jar down at the Hooch and High when the old man who was tending bar asked me to step outside. He said that he remembered me from a life so long ago. We sailed across the 7 seas to the Gulf of Mexico. He said, I thought you'd be an asshole. you're not a preacher or a king. But here you are, standing in the middle of everything. Well, I followed back my footsteps to where it all began. I wrestled with the retrospective history of man. In a rest stop east of Paxico, written on a bathroom stall, I found out what I need to know about the meaning of it all. Said, don't waste your time trying to find the right lines. Just open your mouth and sing. Be happier standing in the middle of everything. Be happier standing in the middle of everything. Thank you so very much. So, this is usually my night job, but you guys woke me up. But I've actually been waking up pretty early because my day job is I'm a teacher's assistant in a special ed classroom for elementary kids. So I'm partially responsible for 7 kids every day, and some of them like to try and run away from me. But there's this one kid who really likes sea animals, and he can list sea animals faster than I can count. He goes, anaconda, anglerfish, sea turtle, sea snail, but like boom, 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 boom. And one day it was time for reading. So I got out a book that had a clam on the cover, and I was like, he's gonna love this book. And I opened the first page, and it said, "This is a clam," and he was as happy as one. But then I turned the page, and it said, "This is a yam," and he lost it. He got under the table and cried because he was promised a book about sea creatures, and he got a book about words that rhyme with clam. But it kind of got me thinking. In this country, we were promised something, this American dream, and for people like me, it feels like everybody else got the American dream, and we were just given this book that's like words that rhyme with American dream. And there are some people in this world who never got the American dream, and what we as a country decided to do was go under the table and cry, and then some people decided it would be a good idea to just burn the book, and then some people said we should just burn all the books, and but the thing about the kid is he eventually came back up, and I got him to read the book about clams and yams and jam and other things that rhyme with clam, and after that he got to read the Very Hungry Caterpillar, which he loved. He loves that book. So sometimes you have to read a book you don't like to get to a book that you do like, well, hopefully someday we'll get a book that we like, instead of reading a book called Words That Rhyme with Fascism. And this song's about people who have not gotten what they were promised, and how if we're not careful, none of us will ever get to promise anything ever again. Anyway, Merry Christmas. I used to go down and put a penny on those tracks, run up to the general store, come back and find it flat. Now I just find ways to faded all to black, 'cause the next train out of Danville ain't ever coming back. First they took our money, and then they sold our soul, 'cause the only thing we ever learned was how to dig for coal. Grandpa's in the ground here, where I dreamed of growing old. Now there ain't no place in Danville that makes it feel like home. There used to be something to live for, a paycheck at the end of the week. The American dream was never more than a house down by Hewitt's Creek. There used to be ballrooms and ball games, and nights on the Summersville shore, a bar where everyone knew my name. Danville ain't the same anymore. No, Danville ain't the same anymore. Now Mama, she got cancer, she's losing all her hair, and Daddy doesn't talk, it's like he isn't even there. I tried to look for work, but I'd rather kick the chair, 'cause those bastards at the coal mine had me breathing poison air. There used to be something to live for, a union full of hard-working men. Now they don't need us anymore, and it's likely that they never will again. There used to be long lines of coal trains, shipping out to power our war. A lover who'd softly say my name, but Danville ain't the same anymore. No, Danville ain't the same anymore. There used to be something we could leave behind, but we've only left our children to live on borrowed time. Stole for generations, but never charged for crimes. Oh, everywhere is Danville when the waters start to rise. There used to be something to live for, like breathing in that cool mountain air, a forest full of dogwoods and sycamores, but we burned it all before you got there. There used to be hope for a future, but we ran all them rivers dry. Now no one even knows for sure if we got what it takes to survive. If we got what it takes to survive. If we got what it takes to survive.
That was fantastic. And the introduction that I did not read because I was excited for you to come up here. You said you found your musical roots in trips to Walnut Valley Music Festival and Bob Dylan lyrics repurposed as bedtime stories. And man, I could hear Bob Dylan, Woody and Arlo back when I was standing back there. That was so fantastic. And the storytelling. We didn't know we got storytelling too. All right, huge fan. Thank you so much, Jack, and we'll look forward to having you back up. Okay, so we have a few announcements to make. Besides our Sunday programming, we have things going on throughout the week. But first of all, we like to do some celebrations. So we have birthdays this week and next. It looks like maybe we missed Alex's birthday this last week, so December 21st was Alex Himlick's birthday. The 23rd, Riley Welters. The 24th, Julia Lloyd. The 27th, Nikki Actopus. The 28th, Ashley Coons. The 29th, Jordan McKinney. The 31st, same birthday as my son, by the way. My son and Becca Otten. And then January 1st, New Year's baby, Casey Stubbs. She gives New Year's baby energy too, if you know her. So if you see any of these people this morning, or with the hectic time around the holidays, maybe reach out to them on socials and wish them a very happy birthday. Does anyone else that's here this morning have a birthday or a celebration that they'd like to add? Okay. Me. Oh, I got a new job. So I think we talked about that a little bit last week. I don't know that they would love me saying. I will be working for a philanthropic foundation based and founded here in Kansas City by one of the city's founding fathers, and I'm pretty darn excited about it, so come talk to me about it later. I don't know that I want to name drop them this early into my gig on YouTube just yet, but congratulations to me. Okay. So coming up this coming Sunday, part of what Oasis is here for is to provide us philanthropic opportunities. Our next service Sunday, we will be hosting another blood drive. It'll be right here. You can sign up in advance using this QR code. There's also I see a laptop open in the back. So if you're a person that is eligible and not afraid of needles and would like to donate blood, you can sign up there during the coffee break. Okay, I'm getting there, come on. There's 14 spots available. Sarah's coaching me from the audience. And there are 3 spots for double red donations, so if you've ever done that. It's a little bit lengthier process, but it's very beneficial for those who receive it. And if you're unable to donate, or again, afraid of needles, there's another service project in the lobby to play with puppies. How is that philanthropy? But it helps socialize them before they're ready to be adopted out with Casey Pet Project. And then there's a donation drive for items on Casey Pet Project's wish list. That QR code will tell you all of that. Isn't that fantastic? It's the future, folks. And so take a look at that. It's also on our private page, all the details. While you're signing up for blood donation, perhaps, we do have our merch table in the lobby. There might be something you want to pick up for yourself or gifts for the holidays. Hoodies to keep warm. We have t-shirts and unbreakable Oasis ornaments for pets or kids. I have totally given up. We only have plastic and really bad cats. So you might want to pick up an ornament if you're in the same boat as me. Okay, so now we're going to get to some of our social events. Our next monthly musical Monday, we'll watch, sing along with In the Heights here on December 30th at 5:30 p.m. So if you are a big Lin-Manuel Miranda fan, you won't want to miss that. And then a Happy New Year party. We're going to have a DJ and come dancey. There is a noise ordinance here at 10 o'clock, so I'm not sure exactly how we'll navigate that, but we'll figure it out. You'll get a party favor and a champagne toast. We are suggesting a $5 donation to help cover those things. But this is a family-friendly event, and you can also bring a beverage of your choice if you prefer, and that starts at 7 p.m. All right. So here's the next event we have coming up in January. And we're asking for your help to raise money for the Oasis General Fund. We know, especially this time of year, it takes quite a bit of money to keep the lights on and the furnace running and keep us all comfortable while we're here on Sundays. We're a fully volunteer-run and donation-funded 501c3. So at this auction, there'll be many unique art pieces, and that includes this beautiful quilt here. And I believe that we're going to set that up differently as a raffle, so that if you're not able to attend the auction, that you still have the chance to win this beautiful quilt here. So I will adjust those details, but be on the lookout for that. We will provide small bites and beverages. And if you have any art that you would like to donate, but we're also looking for some either new or gently used items that can be put into the silent auction. You can see me for more details in person if you'd like to talk about over. All right, Sunday, January 19th, the Kansas City Oasis Book Club has chosen the book Benevolent Society of Ill-Mannered Ladies, which I am one. No, I am currently listening to. I'm an audiobook person, currently listening to. It's very Victorian era drawing room with some shenanigans thrown in. So it's a Washington Post Best Mystery Novel. It's the Washington Post Best Mystery Novel of 2023. So that's immediately after Oasis in the foyer on January 19th. Okay, so now we're to our community moment. Our community moment is an opportunity for a member of our community to present on a topic of their choice. Topics can be related to your profession, your hobbies, some travel you've done, volunteering experiences, just anything you're passionate about, so we get to know members of our community a little bit better. You can sign up, we're shown here on the website at kcoasis.org, or you can talk to Julie Manning, who is back in the back and waving her hand vigorously, if you would like to if you'd like to get up and just share a little bit about yourself with us. And with that, private page. Well, we're gonna skip past that for now. Our community moment. We'll go ahead, have Ramalina come up. Ramalina Steiner, we asked for 3 words to describe herself and a warning, which is all the same. Go ahead and come on up. Pensive, audacious, and obstinate. Ooh, all right. I see why that's both 3 descriptive words and a warning. All right, let's welcome Ramalina Steiner.
Thank you. I'm Ramalina. I've been part of the Oasis group for 2 or 3 years now. For me, doing a community moment is an opportunity to share who I am with people I trust. And even though my life has required that I create an extroverted side, I'm really an introvert by nature, so this isn't easy. There are many ways of sharing who I am. Today I'll briefly tell you about my family, and then I'll tell a couple of stories that helped me understand how I relate to the world. Hopefully, it will get you to it will leave you contemplating what life has helped you realize how you relate to the world. When we're born, we're a blank slate. Our little life form tries to figure out its environment and how to get its needs met in order to survive. We become whatever our family and our life dictates. Hopefully, it will. However, at some point, given enough courage, we look at ourselves and ask, who am I? Separate? Unique? Connected? That's when we can begin to create and see who we are in this world. I'm from the West Coast, born in Oregon, raised in California, moved north in search of a more rural mix of nature and urban sprawl. For 40 years, I lived in the Puget Sound, which is the Seattle area, the rural part of Seattle. At the start of the pandemic, I moved to Kansas City to be closer to my only son and only granddaughter. But that's all public information. I'm ready to share a little more with you now. My family, both my parents were staunch Germans, strict and traditional. My dad even suggested an arranged marriage for me. My mom insisted that I be given a choice. My answer, no. I'm a little stubborn and determined too. Growing up, I was what my parents required me to be, the good little girl. But as soon as I graduated high school and was 18, I was on my own. I got married right away, but marriage didn't turn out to be the mama bear, papa bear, baby bear that I grew up believing it to be. And when that fantasy shattered, I was left wondering, what's the purpose of life? Who am I, and why am I here? I couldn't figure that out by just reading or thinking. I had to spread my wings and do some living, and so my search began. Fortunately, I lived in California in the 1970s. Experimentation was the norm. While living in Los Angeles, my sister-in-law had introduced me to some hippies. In a big, old, open house, we sat around on pillows, passed the wine bottle around, and the joint. I'd never smoked before. Take some if you want, or pass it on. Get up and go in the other room if you want, or just sit, zone out, and be. I had never felt such freedom. It took a little getting used to, but I knew that freedom was a part of who I am. From Los Angeles, my life took me back to the Bay Area, San Francisco, San Jose, closer to my folks. Moving back in with my folks was never an option, but they did allow me to raid their food pantry whenever I wanted. I worked various jobs and took classes at the junior college. But when I realized that unemployment insurance was being automatically deducted from my minimum wage paycheck, I decided that was going to be my vacation fund. It was during those vacations that I was free to test my limits. And so here are a couple of stories about those times. During my vacations, I preferred to hitchhike because I got to meet the people and talk to them as I was going through a particular area. But even though it was the 1970s, you still had to be aware when you were hitchhiking. My cousin in Idaho had been in a serious car accident recently, and so I wanted to go visit him. Hitchhiking, of course. Along the way, I got a ride with some hippies. They were on their way to Yellowstone National Park. I'd never been there. They invited me to join them. Sure. We were about a day's drive outside of Yellowstone when they insisted on gas, grass, or ass. No. So I was let out, as Jack would say, in the middle of nowhere. There I was on the side of the road in rural Montana. The day before I hadn't slept real well. I had an uneasy feeling, but I wasn't quite sure what it was about. So I decided to just walk alongside the freeway instead of hitchhiking and asking for a ride. Before long, a pickup truck passed me, exited, and came back around. There weren't very many cars on the freeway. He pulled it next to me and asked me where I was going and if I wanted a ride. Yeah, okay, sure. So I get in, we talk for a while. Then I noticed he's turned off the freeway. I say, my aunt's gonna miss me if I don't show up in Butte, Montana. And he says, this is just a shortcut. Yeah. Through the forest on a dirt road. A little bit later, he stops the truck and gets out. I'm nervous. I lock the door on my side. He gets back in on his own side, but then he slides right over. I fumble with the door lock, trying to get my door open. Finally, I get out. He's mad. He tries to slam the door and drive away, and my arm catches at the door as I'm trying to grab my backpack. He said, "Let it go." I said, "This is all I've got." And I started to cry. He pauses, takes a big breath, and then says, "Get in, I'll take you to your aunt's." What choice did I have? I'm out in the middle of the forest and I don't know where I'm at. So I get back in, and on the way back, he says he thought all hippies were into free love. I said, no, we're just people too. We believe in nonviolent resistance to end the war in Vietnam and to advocate to protect the earth and to end discrimination. He listened, and he saw me differently. He did take me into Butte. I really didn't know anybody in Butte. I had him let me off in a residential area close to the YMCA. My uneasy feelings subsided, and I spent that night in the bushes next to the YMCA. The next day, I decided to take a break from hitchhiking. The hippies I had ridden with talked about riding the rails. So I found the freight station in Butte, Montana. So many trains. I asked somebody, which train's going to Idaho? Because I was still trying to see my cousin. He asked, are you planning on getting in a boxcar? And I said, oh, yeah. He says, go wait by that building. I'll come get you just before the train leaves. Okay. So I waited there. It seemed like for a long time. And then he did. He came back, and he got me. And he told me to get in the last engine on this really long train. Okay. Well, I'm all alone here. Not a bad place to ride. So I get in the engine, and the train pulls out. Shortly after this long train completely leaves the station, it stops. The guy comes back to where I'm at. He takes me to the front engine. I got to ride the rest of the way in the front engine with 3 engineers. They were the nicest people. They told me a young woman should not be riding in the boxcars. They made me promise not to ride the train all the way back to California. They even offered to give me bus fare. But I wasn't quite ready to go home. I still wanted to see my cousin. But when I did get to Idaho, my aunt wouldn't let me see my cousin. She blamed me for his car accident because he'd visited me in California a year before. But that's another story. I did continue to hitchhike, and I made it back to California with no problems. When I got home, my mother was especially glad to see me. She said on one particular night she was very afraid for me. I didn't go into detail, but yes, that was the night I had problems. How did she know? So in summary, on this trip I realized there are some good people and some not so good people. But sometimes all it takes to change a not so good person into a good person is to listen and understand and not react from stereotypes. I also learned there are many ways of surviving. But most of all, I learned to hear and trust my intuition. And I was convinced there's an invisible something that connects us all. This was the kind of learning that I could not do by just thinking or reading. I wonder, what happened in your life that helped you realize how you relate to the world? When you're ready, that would be interesting for all of us to hear, if you would share that in a community moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There's a lot to unpack in that story. I think I have lots of questions. You know me, I'm always like, I have lots of questions. Thank you so much for sharing, Ramalina. We really appreciate it. Now it's time for a coffee break where I will maybe get to ask those questions, or maybe you will too. So during our coffee break, we encourage everyone to introduce themselves. All those announcements that I read are also on display in the center TV in the foyer, so you can read those over. Also, our musical guest, Jack, and also our featured speaker, Nate, have merch tables set up in the back, so that might be something you want to check out during the coffee break. So we'll see you in about 20 minutes. Thanks.
simple twist of fate.
Okay.
It's you know, a lot of Bob Dylan. That's
A lot of
all I
Bob
can
Dylan.
say.
All right, a lot of. Hence also the harmonica.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's give another warm welcome to Jack Summers.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Ramalina for the community moment. I had heard most of that before because I guess this spring, almost a year ago, Ramalina had that almost same talk with me in her kitchen, trying to convince me I should go out on the road for a little bit, and I did just that, and I got to experience parts of the world that I had not before. I stayed in a bunkhouse in Awendaw, South Carolina, with a group of sweaty Kentucky musicians. I slept in my car in the Appalachian Mountains, and I stayed with millionaires and mansions and a lot of things that I never thought I'd do, all because I could play the guitar, the cowboy chords on a guitar, which you know, it's been the pleasure of my life, and Ramalina has helped me so much along the way. This song's called Ad Astra. I'm leaving tomorrow for a date with the stars in the world's fastest hot air balloon. Keep the George Strait cassette tape I left in your car, 'cause I won't be back anytime soon. And buy cheap libations from the Texaco station off of southbound I-35, and come bid adieu to the man you once knew as I set off on the ride of my life. For aspirin, Ad Astra, I'm a propane-propelled pioneer. For aspirin, Ad Astra, our problems look small from up here. My vessel will fly through these October skies to give me an aerial view from the Sea of Japan to the Grand Coulee Dam. Sayonara, my terrestrial blues. And I'll turn the page on the wars that we waged as I float on lighter than air, and remember you best in that blue satin dress as you dance through Lafayette Square. For aspirin, Ad Astra, I'm a propane-propelled pioneer. For aspirin, Ad Astra, our problems look small from up here. I'm thankful for my worst mistakes. They're the ones that write me. And every time my heart did break, my journey got a little more clear. For aspirin, Aspra, Ad Astra. I'm a propane-propelled pioneer. For Aspra, Ad Astra. Our problems look small from up here. And one day the wind will blow me back again, and I'll slowly float down from the moon. And I'll see you with bells and a story to tell from the world's fastest hot air balloon.
Hi. That was amazing. Man. So talented. We appreciate that so much. And you love it when you hear a song, you're like, I-35. I've been on I-35. I know what that is. So we'll get to welcome Jack back one more time at the conclusion of our program. We'll look forward to that. With that, we'll move into our featured speaker. We like to give a disclaimer here and let everyone know that our program is designed to generate conversation and engage our powers of reason, and not as a forum to start debates. The following presentation has been prepared by our speaker at Not Kansas City Oasis. Please respect the views of our speaker, and if you have any questions, a Q&A portion will follow. It is now my pleasure to introduce Nate Hofer. Nate is an artist blending photography and music. Born in Nigeria to Mennonite conscientious objectors during the Vietnam War, his art reflects a deep commitment to peace. Inspired by his Cold War upbringing in the Midwest, Nate explores issues of arms control and disarmament through aerial photography of decommissioned missile silos and solo ambient performances on the pedal steel guitar. So, Nate Hofer, missile silo music and a nuclear weapons-free future. Oh dear, so sorry. Let's welcome him up. Sorry about that.
Thank you. So, thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor to get to talk about this stuff and perform a little bit, so I'll perform more here in a little bit, but I'll get on with more of the presentation part here to start with. I could talk about this stuff all day long, but I only have 30 minutes today, so I'm going to keep it to that, which is good for everybody. My name is Nate Hofer. I live in Overland Park, Kansas, with my wife and my kiddos who are here. So thank you for being here, you guys. I'm also a creative. So my day job is graphic design, and but I also on the side am a photographer. with a focus on nuclear disarmament, and a musician, also with a focus on nuclear disarmament. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. Just an acknowledgement, I think, is important here. Worrying about the dangers of nuclear weapons is a privilege. Many other communities face daily more pressing existential concerns. So I think that's something that's intuitive, but always good to be reminded. So where does this project start? This is the stuff I'll be showing today is stuff that I've been working on for about 5 or 6 years, but it's also need to call out some important influences, like you may have just heard in the introduction. I was born in Nigeria in the mid-'70s because my parents were teachers there for 3 years. I was born right at the end of that, so I don't really remember anything about it, but it's important because to me, because they were part of the Mennonite Church, and the Mennonite Church stands in opposition to state-sponsored violence. And so what was important to me was always knowing, as I grew up, that my parents were the very best kind of war protesters, by demonstrating how they wanted to live their lives. And being born in the mid-'70s means that in the early '80s, I remember the Cold War. Even though when I was at that age, I couldn't have told you that we were in a Cold War or toward the end of one. It was important to me in a few ways later in life. And so I've got a few short stories about this time. One was that I came home from school one day. I was a creative kid, and so I had it drawn on the back of one of my math tests or one of my worksheets, and it was what I thought World War III was going to be like. I sort of understood in first or second grade that there was World War I, World War II, and I thought, World War III was going to be, something possibly in the future, so I drew lots of tanks and soldiers and planes like shooting each other, and I showed this to my stepdad. And my stepdad saw this and in no uncertain terms told me, no, this is not what World War III was going to look like. World War III will be very short because we'll all be dead instantly. Not really Father of the Year moment for him, but it was, I took something away from that, of course. And another time, growing up in this area, some of you may remember this too if you've grown up here, the Sunflower Army Ammunition Plant near DeSoto, Kansas. Was an operation, and growing up near that, it was just kind of accepted knowledge, I guess, that if ever we were attacked with Soviet nuclear weapons, that would be a target, and so would we. So that was also something, part of the backdrop for me growing up then. And finally, the day after, I remember when this movie aired on TV, not because I saw it, but because I was not allowed to see it. And so this was something, I knew something was different about this because usually I could watch anything on primetime TV with my parents, but not this for some reason. So that had an impact on me. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie, it's about World War III and it does not have a happy ending. So those are the kind of things that were part of my childhood. Not that I was overly traumatized or anything by them, but it was something that influenced me. Eventually, the Cold War ended. I was not in Berlin when it ended, but this is just a photo to demonstrate that, end of an era, the 90s came, I moved on, and, but then, fast forward into my adult years, some of that, a lot of that, those feelings I had as a kid in the 80s started coming back. Why? Because, we're talking about nuclear weapons again, saber rattling. New countries have nuclear weapon capabilities, and so this starts bothering me again. And when I talk about nuclear weapons in this context, I'm specifically talking about ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and this was sort of the hallmark of the Cold War. And whereas the Cold War ended, ICBMs were something that always stuck around. Some of them were decommissioned. We'll talk about that a little bit, but this nuclear threat has constantly, hasn't gone away since they were first deployed in the 60s. So this brings me to, kind of a decision point. As an adult, I've got this anxiety again. What do I do with it? Well, now things are a little bit different. I'm a little smarter. I know that I can use my creative practice as kind of an art therapy to deal with and process this stuff. So this is kind of what this talk is going to be about, how I do that. And as part, for me, there's a fine line between an intense interest and being, afraid of something. It's almost the same thing. And so this morbid interest almost in nuclear weapons is something that, as a rabbit hole, I went down. And so I'm going to get nerdy here with some some of this ICBM stuff, and you'll see why. It's going to pay off here in a second. So just bear with me. So this is a Google map of the first generation of ICBM. So what interested me mostly here is where they were. So from 1959 to 1968, the Atlas ICBM program. We're in these parts of our country, and you can see Kansas has some right there in the middle. Shortly after that, the next sort of generation of ICBMs were Titans from 1962 all the way to 1987. 54 of those existed. Again, you see some around Wichita, Kansas here. And more powerful than the Atlas missiles. And when I talk about the power and potential destructiveness that these ICBMs have, it's magnitudes beyond Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs at the end of World War II. Just untold destructive potential. Then finally, the third iteration of ICBMs, and these are the ones I'm mostly interested in, are the Minuteman missiles from 1962 all the way to present. Like, these are still deployed today. And at the height of the Cold War, there were 1,000 of these. And you see them right here in Missouri. So we had some pretty close to us. But if we take a closer look, right after the Cold War, 600 of those were decommissioned. And if you can tell here, the check marks are the ones that are still active. We still have 400 of those active at this moment. And then the X's are where the decommissioned missile fields are. And those are the things that really I found interesting. And I'll talk about why here in a little bit. Now, if we zoom in on just the Missouri portion of those ICBM missiles, you can kind of see where the state line is here between Kansas and Missouri. Kansas City is up the top, and then over there in the top right-hand corner is Columbia, just so you can kind of get a sense of geography here. These are 150 missile silos in Missouri. 3 of those 150, it's broken into 3 squadrons of 50 missiles. Each of those squadrons of 50 are made up of 5 flights of 10 missiles. And so if we take a look at one of those flights, you kind of get a sense of how it works. There's the missile alert facility in the middle. That's where the soldiers are underground in a bunker with the keys. And they have access then, or would have had access because these are decommissioned, to the 10 around, the 10 missile silos around them, networked to that missile alert facility. And the way that kind of looks is like this. The missile alert facility is underground. Here on the left and on the right, you get the idea of what a missile silo looks like. That's really the thing that is the most interesting to me, because that's where the nuke is. Also interesting is the decommissioning process that these went through after the Cold War in the 90s. Because of peace treaties, these weapons of mass destruction were destroyed, which is something kind of poetic and ironic to me. But these were imploded so that there was nothing underground anymore, and this was something detailed through like these peace treaties. And by the way, the same thing were happening to these ICBM missiles in Russia and in the Soviet Union. And taking a closer look at just a single Minuteman site is like this. They're basically all very similar. In the southern side is the missile silo itself. There's a security rectangular fence that goes around the whole thing, and there's a gate and access road leading out somewhere. So that when we get to my photography, you kind of see what we're looking at. Obviously, what's missing is the missile. And this is 30 years since decommissioning, so nature is starting to take over a little bit here. Or you can start to see what the current landowner is using this for. So we'll start to get into now this is the photography section. This kind of breaks down into two halves. So this is the visual part. So when looking at the photographs that I make of these decommissioned missile sites, you can see right away the similarities, but also the differences. What's fascinating to me is that this fence, in many cases, is still here, kind of creating a frame for something that's been missing for 30 years, and that's the nuke. And at the end of the day, ultimately, that's something that gives me hope personally, because it reminds us that 30 years ago, 2 countries decided we needed less ICBMs. And if we can do that then, possibly, hopefully, we can do that again. And it seems like, to me, that's something we should do. So I took as many photos as I could, many different locations, different times of year, different times of day. In a lot of these cases, these are used for agriculture by the current landowners. Bales, hay bales, are something that's very common. There's a winter storm on the right here. I fly a drone camera for these, of course, to get right overhead. All of these are just a little bit different. Most of these are in Missouri. A few of these are in North or South Dakota as well. Usually agricultural concerns. Sometimes there'll be a business like the one in the middle here is I can't remember exactly what it was, but talking to the owner, he in particular was somebody that was really in touch with kind of the history of his ex-missile sites. So particularly interesting to talk to him. Winter photos. The one on the far right, as far as I could tell, was completely gone, and I'm not sure why, but there's really very little evidence that there was ever one there. And by the way, this stuff is pretty easy to find online if you know where to look on Wikipedia. There's no secret to where these locations are. And even during the Cold War, these were not really, secretive. Even the Russians knew at the time, where these were, of course. The green ones on the left and right here happen to be on Missouri public lands. So those are easy for anyone to get to. So yeah, so again, for me, these offer some kind of hope for the future. This is how I deal. This is how I end up processing this stuff. Right? I have hope, simply because at one point we did this, and I hope we can do it. I think we can do this again. Another way I look at this is how a nuclear-free future could look. The photo on the far right is actually one where they kept all the components above ground cosmetically. There's nothing underground, and it's part of a museum in North Dakota. The one on the far right here is a Seventh-day Adventist church that uses the site itself as the parking lot for their new building near Kingsville, Missouri. And sometimes you'll find like a property line that cuts through a particular missile site, like the two green ones here. The one on the far left here has cows feeding on the north side. On the south side is hay bale storage. Sometimes a farm will be right on top of it. And then this last slide is the same site, just several years different. On the far right is a fireworks stand that a local church near Garden City, Missouri, was running as a fundraiser. So once I had some of these photos kind of up and going and had enough of them, I started getting into some smaller galleries around Kansas City. And I called it the exhibit 1.5 acres, since that is about the size of each of those fenced areas. Libraries were particularly good places, I thought, to get into. So that's basically the visual side of it. The music, the audio side of it, was something that came just a little bit later. And for me, being a musician, I'd always thought that there should be a soundtrack to these photos, but I was never quite sure so it took a little time to figure this out. But eventually I got to a point where I thought, if I could record inside of either above or below ground at a former missile site, that would be conceptually pretty tight, like to be able to do that. So I was able to find one. And this one happens to be in Wilson, Kansas, where you see it circled here. Now these missile sites are a little bit different. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, these are Atlas and Titan sites, different than the ones over here in Missouri where I discussed had been all imploded and destroyed underground. The ones in Kansas had gone through a different decommissioning process. So those underground components were all still there, if you can get to them. And the easiest ones to get to were the Atlas sites. And so the one circled here in Wilson happens to be an Airbnb site. So it was just a simple phone call to book a couple nights there. And then I asked the guy before I'd come out, like, is it possible for me to go down below and record something? And I asked him, how's the reverb? Is it great? And he's like, yes, there's a lot of that. So I brought my camera and my drone, did my photography thing, and then this is kind of a bad photo of the missile silo underground, but it's full of water, but there's probably like 10 or 11 stories above it of just nothing. It's a big concrete circular room, essentially, and so it has a beautiful reverb sound in there. So I lug all my stuff down the stairs, get in there, and it's really pretty gnarly. It's kind of a construction site. By the way, if you go here today, it doesn't look like this anymore. Now it's a really beautiful underground Airbnb. At the time in 2021, when I recorded this, when I recorded here, it was very raw. And there's two levels to this bunker underground where I recorded. And I'd set up the microphones in a few different places to get varying effects. But if I go back just a few, right here, I put 2 microphones to record in stereo right at the door to the big room here. So I got that in the can. So that was recorded. The next thing would be to actually find a way to distribute it. And as I was recording and putting this stuff on social media, my buddy Brady Vest at Hammer Press saw what I was doing and messaged me and said, hey, would you be interested in collaborating on an album? And I said, of course, yes. So So we pressed some vinyl for this, clear vinyl, which is beautiful. And then we have this, then we start concepting what the album will be like, the packaging. And Brady's idea, he's in the middle here, is to take the photography and include it inside, which is always what I'd kind of wanted to have happen, which is the first time the audio and the audio and the visual are coming together, being married for the first time. So I was excited about that. And if you haven't been down to Hammer Press in the West Bottoms, do yourself a favor and go check it out. They've got a lot of stuff that you can buy, and it's just a fascinating old school print shop. So we get this stuff printed. It ends up looking like this. It's called decommissioned for obvious reasons. There are 6 photographs that are letterpress printed inside the packaging. Each of those maps to one of the 6 tracks. So track 1, is mapped to this first photo. Track 2 is the second photo. So that thing, we press 250 of those, and we make that available. And shortly before this, my friend Frank Morris at KCUR kind of sees what I'm doing on social media and is like, hey, would you be interested in doing an interview for NPR? And I say, of course. And so that summer, after this released in May, and then that summer had some really nice press, which was more than I thought. And so that was fantastic. And then as this was happening, and as this radio piece aired, my buddy Mike Lundgren, who heads up TEDx KC, heard the story and said, hey, I think that'd be perfect for the TEDx event at the Kaufman Performing Arts Center. So I got to be part of that, which was something I never thought I'd ever get to do. Again, it was just like the perfect marriage of the audio and the visual. So I essentially got to play parts of my album with all the photography, right behind me. Which kind of brings me here today. This was kind of the next step, is doing and I think this is why I'm doing this, was because, Julie, I think, saw me at TEDx and then invited me here. So it's this great, sort of connect the dots sort of event. So, and I don't think this is finished by any means. I keep planning to develop this. In 2025, I'll get the opportunity to present it at the Volin Gallery in Alma, Kansas. That's in the fall of next year. So this is I'll just keep, rolling with this for as long as it's enjoyable. Maybe there's a book. That's kind of the long-term goal. That's one that's kind of a tricky one to figure out for me, but I'm trying to do that, so we'll see what happens there. And that takes me to the end. So I would like to play just a little bit more to take us out, but that's the speaking part of the presentation. And one other thing I should say about my approach to pedal steel, obviously for this, it's a little bit less, it's non-traditional pedal steel playing. This is, it's more ambient and more chill. Maybe it even puts you in the mindset of world diplomacy, Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think maybe we have time for one question, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Anyone have a question? I always have. Oh no, Chris. I was gonna say it'll be me if somebody doesn't volunteer.
So I was just curious, do the Russians have any decommissioned sites, and do you have any plans to take pictures of those too?
That's a great question. I mean, that's a question I would love an answer to. I know that they have sites, and you can go on Google Maps, and there's information online about where those are. They look different than ours. Now, I was ever getting over there, that part of the dream, the long-term dream, would be to go to either Russia or Ukraine and find those and photograph those and put those, next to the American version. I think that would be a powerful thing. If I ever get over there, I don't know. Probably not. Looking at Anne, she's not a fan of that idea.
She's like, no dice, no dice.
But that's a great question. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that we kind of are out of time today, but I really appreciate you being here, and I was just so fascinated by your whole the passion for this project and everything that has come together. So let's once again give Nate a big round of applause for joining. Okay, and so while Jack is coming up to the stage, I want to remind everyone that Kansas City Oasis is a 501c3 nonprofit run solely on donations and volunteers, as we've mentioned, I think, throughout the program. If you enjoyed the topic and music today, it is just an example of what we do here about 49 weeks a year with 3 service Sundays. So if you would consider, please donate to our organization to keep us running, kcoasis.org/donate, or by Venmo that you see up here. All right, and with that, we will ask Jack really quickly, where can we see you next?
The day after Christmas, I'm playing at Northside Social in Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm kind of laying low.
All right, fair enough. Okay, with that, let's give a warm welcome back to Jack as he finishes up our program today.
Nate, that was awesome. Beautiful music, beautiful message. I was also raised in a household that instilled the fear of nuclear war in my soul. We watched war games when I was much too young, and then Dr. Strangelove a few years later. And I remember my dad telling me that they used to have to hide under their desks for, Cold War drills, and I remember thinking those desks must be pretty strong. But someday I hope we say goodbye to all of our weapons of mass destruction. And now it's time for me to say goodbye to you. As is common in this part of the world, I take just a little bit too long to say goodbye. And this song's called Midwestern Goodbyes. It's a song about how sometimes it's hard to say goodbye. And sometimes you say goodbye to something and it comes back into your life, and for better or worse, you have to say goodbye again. And well, sometimes you say goodbye to something and then 4 years later it comes back. And that's a joke. And I'm going to play this song. That e-cigarette, your mobile phone, things that you can't leave behind when you go. And if it weren't for work and the weekends, you swear that you could throw them away and just say goodbye for good. It might feel like you're stuck here forever, but darling, it don't hurt to try. Just know when you're singing a swan song and when it's a lullaby, and just let go. All we get is time, and life's too short for Midwestern goodbyes. That Honda Accord, made in 2003, that you ran off K10 right into an elm tree. You took your senior pictures perched up on that hood. Can still see them tow it away as you say goodbye for good. Well, the glory days don't last forever, but the bad times go away too. See the dogwoods drop leaves in the winter and wait for the redbuds to bloom. And just let go. All we get is time, and life's too short for Midwestern goodbyes. That box that I keep stashed under my bed, filled with some letters that you've never read. I once tried to burn them, but they're like a stump of green wood. Still, someday I pray that I'll say goodbye for good. They say broken hearts take a bit longer. We'll know when the moment is right. You left me there at the altar, and then we went out the next Saturday night. And we'll let go. It's okay to take this slow. We've got time for a Midwestern goodbye. We'll let go. All things heal in time, and I guess love needs a Midwestern goodbye. Needs a Midwestern goodbye. Oh, I best get going. Needs a Midwestern goodbye. Just one more beer. Needs a Midwestern goodbye. I've been Jack Summers. Needs a Midwestern goodbye. I have merch back there. Needs a Midwestern goodbye. We'll leave it there. Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Whew. What a Sunday. I'm so grateful to have been here today. We will be meeting up, some collection of people will be meeting up to continue the conversation at Strang Chef Collective on 4620 Warnell Road. There's free parking nearby. But if you park at the Cascade Hotel, there is a cost there, so try to avoid that. If you wouldn't mind help cleaning up around the area, and then we would just remind everyone that, we don't have a program this next week. It's Service Sunday. Again, if you haven't signed up for blood donation, you're able to, or if you want to come and play with puppies, that's what's available next week. In the new year, our first featured speaker will be Jude Lane on Able Services, and a musical guest will be Oasis' very own Steve Morton. So we want to have that to look forward to. And it just is left to me to be so grateful that you're all here today, to thank this week's presenters, Nate, Ramalina, Jack, and thank you so much for being here or for joining us online. We're not a community without you, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.